Welcome to Graphic Policy Radio. This is a comics and superhero media podcast. I'm your host, Ilana Levin, and this is the podcast for people who know that when a government builds a prison camp, it intends to fill it one way or the other, whether it's Department of Damage Control or DHS. And today we are going to be talking about Wonder Man, Marvel's newest prestige, as it were, TV series. And I have a fantastic guest returning to the show today to talk with me about Wonder Man. We're going to be giving you an initial conversation that's spoiler-free to give you a sense of whether or not you want to watch the show, because I know not everybody's seen it. And then we're going to go full spoilers after I give the Unleash the Horses announcement to our listeners. And our guest today is returning champion Brandon Wilson. He is a filmmaker and lecturer. Born and raised in Los Angeles, he attended UCLA, where he took a BA in African American Studies, an MFA from UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. Brandon has directed 2 micro-budget features, 2005's The Man Who Couldn't, which is on YouTube, and Sepulveda from 2016, which is streaming for free on Vimeo, and he is a regular podcast guest on many shows that I enjoy. Welcome back, Brandon.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be back.
Well, you know, when I saw how much this show was about Los Angeles and the film industry, and I know you're a big Marvel head, I thought this got to be something you're watching, and I was so glad when you said yes. I'll admit that I still haven't seen the Fantastic Four movie. Like I'm kind of picking and choosing what I'm watching in Marvel, and I will watch Fantastic Four. But really, what stuck out to me?
Don't rush.
Oh.
See it if you see it. It's not a priority. You made a good call. Trust your instincts.
Okay. But you know, this stood out to me because, you know, to be honest, I don't recall what review I read that said that was flagging to me that this was worth my time. I don't know what made you decide to check it out.
I kind of just knew this was going to be at least interesting, at least a departure. This isn't going to be kind of the rehash tired. I mean, and clearly the ad campaign was suggesting that they know this is for people who are tired of Marvel's shtick, and this is for you. Thought, knowing that it was going to be sort of a buddy show for Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Ben Kingsley, that also was really intriguing.
Yeah.
To me. So.
Yeah. And I had not seen Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3. I knew about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen Iron Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say to the listeners, you know, if you haven't seen Iron Man 3 or Shang-Chi or whatever, it doesn't matter. So long as you're somebody who's familiar with the general concept of superheroes, I'm pretty sure that's everybody listening to this podcast. You have everything you need to know to enjoy this TV show.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very light on any kind of Easter. There's really no Easter eggs. They don't mention the snap once. Like there's just this could be a world in which, like our world, in which Marvel is a thing people consume. It could be, you could totally do it that way. But yeah.
I mean, this has been quite a cast. I remember Yahya Abdul-Mateen from Watchmen, and we all thought that was such an amazing performance. And like when I think about actors who feel like movie stars in like a real classic Hollywood sense, I feel like he has that level of charisma.
Yes, I would agree.
And what's so interesting to me is in this film, he's playing a character who has real gravitas, but who doesn't seem like a movie star the way he does. And I think that must have been like challenging in an interesting way to pull off.
Yeah. Someone, who isn't that kind of movie star and isn't really preoccupied with it. No, I would love to, I haven't seen any kind of interview with him, but I would be curious to hear what this was like for him playing somebody that, is maybe not him, but something that's obviously something he can very much relate to. Must have been a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And Ben Kingsley is just really having fun with his accent, and which is not his accent. He is doing a different regional British accent than his normal one. I don't know how he decided to commit to that.
Yeah.
But it is fun seeing him in a Marvel series.
It is.
And their dynamic together is fantastic.
And, I gotta say, I love as Trevor Slattery is sort of the gift that keeps on giving, because one of my issues with the MCU is they've kind of erased a lot of supporting
Mm,
supporting characters. There just aren't enough.
mhm,
And I just think, if you know comics, like, they're important. You need the sidekick. You need the people who are constantly facing off against these powerful people who aren't themselves powerful. And yeah, it's been fun to see him really come into his own as a character. And and you've got Ben Kingsley. So yeah, I think it's great to have him be sort of the biggest um, a connective element from everything else. And again, just I would love to know what the process that he clearly had to go through. Like, there must be two or three guys that he came up with that he's sort of basing Slattery on,
mm,
and
yeah.
yeah. So it just seems like they're having a lot of fun playing these
Like,
parts.
if guys have ever wanted to see Ben Kingsley reciting bits of Shakespeare in a Marvel show, this is your opportunity.
Yes, yes.
And
And
yeah.
their chemistry is phenomenal, and not something you're like, well, of course, let's get Yaya and Kingsley together. That's a slam dunk. I mean, yeah, it's not something anyone would necessarily have thought up, but yeah, their chemistry is terrific. And yeah, it's fun watching them play together. And yeah, the show is very well directed. There are four credited directors: Daniel Destin Cretton, the director, of course, of Shang-Chi, and also he wisely said no to the one of the Avengers films, and he is now doing he's currently working on Spider-Man, the
Oh,
new Spider-Man that'll be out later this year.
huh.
And I guess we're just never going to get a Shang-Chi sequel because, apparently, I guess it didn't go over in China well, and they don't seem to be very committed to continuing
Jesus.
that storyline, which is a real shame. But yeah, he's the co-creator of the show, along with Andrew Guest, who is a TV writer whose credits include Hawkeye, Community, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This has, of course, been something they've been doing a lot lately on the shows, is getting people who have a background in TV comedy.
Mhm.
And yeah, so those are the two creators. Um, Cretton directs two episodes. James Ponsoldt, the indie filmmaker, directs three and four. And then you've got Tiffany Johnson, who I'm not familiar with, black woman director, five and six. And then Stella McGee, another black woman director, for episodes seven and eight. They're directors there.
Well, that's fantastic that they're
Yes.
making sure that there is diversity behind the camera. I
Hmm.
also know they had a cultural consultant to make sure that the representation of a Haitian American family,
Hmm.
Simon Williams in this movie is Haitian American, was actually like done well, and I'm always a fan. And this is a cultural consultant who's also a TV writer, so perfect, perfect. But it really did pay off having the people with a comedy background, because this show is very funny. It's
Hmm.
also touching. It's exciting, but the humor beats are pretty consistent. I laughed loud many times.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, it's quite funny. It's especially, yes, that's what I'm here for, right? As a lifelong, LA resident and LA native, and as someone who has been around the film industry and inside it sporadically, yes, it all it feels very well observed. Simon's car, his apartment, like, yeah, that's the real stuff. And
Right,
it's great
right.
because this show, because of that, ends up being about class, in a very interesting way, and
Mm, that's so real.
not just about like the dream factory. And I want to say, just to step back for a moment before, this is, I don't think, I thought about it. I don't think we've had a bigger departure from the comics than this show. Like this,
Mm,
like, we've never had a
mhm.
Marvel property, where an MCU thing where, like, this has nothing to do really with the Simon Williams that, you read in, from the comics and that
Yeah.
character. Even the old movie he's watching that's not that Wonder Man. That's just a Wonder Man that it happens to, it's more like a Buck Rogers, a Flash Gordon. This is not
Yeah.
that character, and that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think I've ever. There's a freedom here. Like they really just kind of tossed, and at this point, I don't think anyone cares. I'm sure there's some
Hmm.
Wonder Man fans out there who are really pissed off that they don't get the old plot line. And for my people who are listening who are not, up on this stuff, the Wonder Man character was created in 1964 by Stanley Jack Kirby. So that's like, you're a gold star Marvel character if you're one of that run. That's
Hmm.
special. And also Don Heck. And he was an interest. He starts off as a Tony Stark wannabe industrialist who's competing with Iron Man but failing, and he undergoes an experimental procedure that, are you sitting down, turns him into this creature made of energy and incredibly dangerous and powerful. So he's one of these guys that was kind of created to be so powerful that he could sort of fight the Avengers all by his lonesome. So and then there's a whole long plot line in which he dies and doesn't die. Apparently DC was not happy about the name of this character, and that caused some
Hmm.
problems. But so that's kind of why they would sort of put him on ice for a while, and then eventually he comes back as a hero. And in my era of reading Marvel religiously in the 80s, he was a main staple of the West Coast Avengers. And part of that was, so in my mind, yes, Wonder Man is an LA guy. And
Hmm.
I know that also part of his lore is that it's a certain point he started to hire himself out as a stuntman because he's indestructible. So, I thought, and that's an interesting echo in this, but totally different in the show. So that's Wonder Man, and he turns up. I would call him like a sort of second tier hero, who you can bring in when you need somebody who's very powerful and very strong and like at the Iron Man level, if not stronger. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's him. And I thought about watching the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. If you're ever interested in like the classic Avengers storylines, because you ain't gonna get them from the movies, that's for sure. Um, they're not really doing that anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's just a 3 hour cameo fest now. But yeah, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes on Disney Plus they really take the old plot lines and do them well. And so I did not actually revisit the Wonder Man episodes. They never got around to making him. They only did the part where he was a bad guy and sort of redeem
Mm.
it. They never actually got to the season where he would have become a member of the team. So that's who Wonder Man was, and you don't
Hmm.
need to know any of that for the show. Like the
Nope.
show doesn't care about any of this stuff. I mean, yes, there's some the Easter eggs are like his costumes. He is wearing several,
Yeah.
because Wonder Man's never had a real one singular costume. He's got like three looks that I can think of, and
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
all appear in different places here.
I will also just say, like, for folks who are completely unfamiliar with the TV series, I mean, what we have here is a story of a struggling actor in Los Angeles who has superpowers and is wrestling with the implications of that and of having to essentially be in the closet about them. And this is not a show where people are fighting an alien invasion. Like, it is really about the struggle of the self and dealing with policing. Like that's and that's sort of like the stakes of it is very personal, but also has strong significance to like life under the police state that we have now. And for me, the primary character thing that I knew and cared about Simon Williams, the comics version, was that he had cool sunglasses, he was an actor, and he and Beast were roommates.
Mhm.
Um, and like had a whole dynamic as roommates. And so it makes sense that the pieces that stay from the comics that make it to the series are he has cool sunglasses. He is an actor. And he does have a best friend who has an important role in his life and in the series, but it's not Beast in this case.
Hmm.
It is a different person. And I actually went to see, like, is Trevor Slattery somebody from the comics at all? And it's and not only that, there is a role. You know what? We'll talk about Barnaby later. But again, Brandon, thank you. That was necessary and appreciated.
My pleasure.
One other thing I really enjoyed were the music choices. There were a lot of songs that when they came on, I just started singing along to them,
Yes.
which is like, including some like deep cuts, like "She's About a Mover" by the fucking Sir Douglas Quintet. Like, people were not expecting that. It definitely was like somebody borrowed my iPad, except I don't have an iPod. Got kind of a soundtrack. Like, oh my God, When Can I Be Loved? The Linda Ronstadt version.
Yeah.
The original Buck Owens, Act Naturally, which,
Yeah.
like, in some way is, if I'm so glad it was the Buck Owens one and not the Beatles one, because it's like, it's California.
Right.
He's a California country star. It's very thoughtful
Hmm.
and exactly not stuff that had been overused, which is always a relief. A song from a film that is featured in this. I feel like it's not quite a spoiler to say that there's parallels between in this movie, and they lampshade it a lot, connecting with Midnight Cowboy. And I actually did go back to rewatch the movie Midnight Cowboy,
Hmm.
which I had not. I saw it in like probably college. I hadn't revisited since then because it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's like, how often do you want to do that to yourself? But listeners, for you, I went and I watched it again, and it is an amazing movie. And I had forgotten a lot of it, so it actually was good that I rewatched it.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going to argue to you guys after the break that it isn't just a superficial similarity between the movie and the show.
Hmm.
Somebody I was chatting with on Blue Sky was saying that he thought it was just kind of like a reference, but it didn't really hold much weight for him. And I'm like, I disagree. Like, I don't think it's the most significant thing happening in the movie, but I don't think it's a light touch either. They
Right.
thought about that film.
Yeah.
I also think that the show had some things that are really meaningful and timely to say about living as a marginalized identity, as a criminalized identity in America today and any time in history, but especially now.
Hmm.
I felt really strongly, and I think everybody's going to read their own life experience into it, but, I felt really strongly about there being a good, a significant queer metaphor that I'm sure, people of other experiences might read other metaphors into. But
Hmm.
for me, that's kind of part of the point of superhero fiction. So I'm glad that
Hmm.
they didn't forget it.
Hmm.
And lastly, before we go to full spoilers, as a lifelong LA guy, were there any moments where you as an LA person were like, dude, that's not real?
Let me think. Uh, Not particularly. I mean, it felt pretty accurate. There was nothing in it that threw me in a huge way as far as the LA stuff.
Mm,
No, no, I think it is definitely an LA show, and it captures the city, and yeah, no, there was nothing in it that I felt was unrealistic. Even geographically, it did
mm,
nothing stood out to me, because that's something, of course, people love to complain about when their city's on
yes.
film, is when someone, like,
Yeah.
drives 10 minutes and they're all of a sudden across town. And I think the traffic, the bickering about whether the Hollywood Bowl is, there's a performance there, and that's why it's tied up traffic. That stuff again. They really, you can tell these are people who've lived in LA for a while. They may not be natives, but
Mhm.
they've certainly lived in LA for a while.
And, I like that it didn't just stay in central
Yes.
Los Angeles. Like,
Yes.
we went to the neighborhoods, we were in
Yes.
the valley,
Yeah.
and, like, it showed sort of the different kind, not all of them, but, it showed a number of different other locations. Like, I've been to LA a number of times. I'd never been to Pacoima.
Yeah.
So it felt like it was really about, like, the people of the city.
Yeah, Pacoima, what is it, episode 5, when we're off, again, yeah, like the real LA. And no, I appreciate that it's not just a studio lot or the actual Hollywood neighborhood, that it is really kind of, you get a sense of the town, very strongly, yeah. And yeah,
And now
Pacoima is a great, catch, because there's a lot of places they could have made the Williams family be from, and that one is like easily like, okay, I can't even think of the last time I heard of Pacoima being dropped in anything. Like, I really can't remember.
Mm. Um, I think we're ready to go full spoilers, guys. I guess my last thoughts to you is that, I'm coming to this as obviously a massive comics fan, but certainly not somebody who watches any old thing Marvel Studios does. This was well worth my time. I watched it twice, and I think it would be great for folks to come out watch the show. So, and now we go officially full spoilers. We kind of hit the first one of my questions for you, which was, do you think the portrayal of LA works? But let's talk a little bit about its portrayal of the industry. In the opening scene where we have Simon completely botching his bit part in a TV show,
Hmm.
I thought was so well done was that the first time he sort of asks a question to expand upon his character's backstory, it feels like to me, like, okay, that's like an okay, reasonable question to ask, bring some richness, sure. And then the follow up, you're like, okay, that was enough. That was enough. And then he goes, and I'm like, you're making them move the lighting? Are
Right.
you fucking
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, like they would have fired him. They would have fired him earlier. But like, I thought that the way the series paced it by having his first thing be reasonable was
Right.
pretty fucking slick.
Yeah, no, it's beautifully written and directed, and the response that he gets from the director the first time, like, okay, then like, you can see she's reevaluating him, and like, okay, you're a pro, you really thought about this, and she's
Mhm.
impressed, and you can just see that just dissolve with every passing second, and yeah, it's excruciating because you just helpless. You got to sit there and watch him blow it. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's a great introduction to the character, and like, who this is.
Uh, so in terms of representation of the industry, did it realism is not the how we judge whether or not art is good,
Hmm.
but it did feel to me that there was a groundedness in its portrayal of like being an actor who's just struggling to get auditions and
Hmm.
doing bit parts and things like that. And that felt pretty real to you.
Yes, I would say, and I am not as I am not really in the industry at this point anymore. It's been a while since I worked in it. I haven't made a feature in 10 years, so I'm a little out of it. But things like the self tape to me felt like, okay, not only is this feel real, this feels like of our moment. The fact that self taping has become the order of the day, and so that means that an actor has to get that's a skill they got to get. They have to, and they also
Yeah.
have to have a place to do it. And if you have a crappy apartment and you've accidentally damaged it with your ionic powers, then that creates a problem. So that I thought was very well observed. Now,
Mhm.
in terms of the industry overall, and this is like a big thing, and I'm probably jumping ahead. The
Go
movie
ahead.
itself, the fact that he gets it the whole time, I don't know about you, but the whole time I'm thinking like, is this whole movie damage control? Like, is this
Yes.
all, you know?
Yes. I want to talk with you about that because I it's it's so perfect that it's happening.
Right,
It's crazy that Ron Kovac is doing it, which is not to say that there aren't prestige directors who do a
right,
Marvel movie. I mean,
right,
Kenneth Branagh did the first Marvel movie. I mean, other than
right.
Blade, did the first, But when Ron Kovac gets that phone call in the middle of the audition and he comes back looking a little bit dismayed,
Mhm.
I have to wonder if that was damage control saying that he has to cast them.
Yes,
And at that point, the acting performance from Simon hadn't been up to a caliber where he would have wanted to do that.
right.
But I
It's
do think in the end, he's like, okay, no, this guy at least can do it. But
right.
nobody wants to get a call from the government telling you what you have to do. Like Hollywood has followed that many times and does not particularly enjoy it, but will go along with it.
Right. It feels like this was maybe something they wrestled with in the writer's room, and maybe either they took it out before they shot it, or they shot it and they just decided to leave it out. This big reveal that the whole thing is just damage control, primarily trying to entrap him, but also figuring, well, maybe it'll make some money, maybe this can work for everybody. Because yes, the idea that whole thing is a little nebulous, and him winning the lottery this way, along with Trevor, but that's the only part that maybe it feels a little bit strange credulity a bit. But other than that, I mean, yeah, even Von Kovac, who I kind of saw him as like a Francis Ford Coppola figure almost, you know, and
Mm.
uh, you know, as a European film auteur filmmaker, yeah, I mean, even that I could see that. I mean, you know, directors will do almost anything. A director can talk themselves into almost any project if they really want to. Like, it doesn't matter if it's like some pop star who can't act. They'll, you know, they can tell themselves, but I'm gonna be the one to make something out of
Mhm.
this. I'm gonna make the great you know, comic book movie. So yeah, that I completely
And
agree.
sometimes they're right.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's the thing,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? I mean, that's one of the things that's with comics and Hollywood is like people will turn trash into treasure.
Yes.
The performance from Zlatko Buric, it was so interesting because he played the dictator in Superman.
Right. Right, right.
And I thought that was like dictator, director
Yes.
is kind of an interesting
And he is
parallel.
a oligarch in Triangle of Sadness,
Oh.
the Ruben Östlund film that won the Palme d'Or a few years ago. So yeah, he's having a good run as these kind of yeah, authority figures, the sort of contemporary world authority figures of dubious, you know, that we're not sure how we necessarily feel about. I think Von Kovac's probably the most above board of them, definitely, of the ones he's played, of those
How
3.
did you feel about his audition process in his house with having the actors do so much improv with each other?
That's what reminded me of Coppola. Like, that's the kinda thing,
Mm.
this idea of, like, we're gonna play, and, yeah, doing it in his house, and, you know, they're not sure if they're supposed to take their shoes off and just kinda and just kind of go with this, gonna just try this. That's the kinda thing that reminded me of Coppola and that kind of a, you know, new Hollywood era kind of filmmaker. So, yeah, I could see that. I mean, yeah, obviously, that's not gonna be everyone's process. I'm sure Michael Bay has never done anything like that, but I thought it was it's great, and it actually was really well done, and it totally suited the dramatic needs of where Simon's at and where and Trevor.
Mhm.
And you know, this is one of those moments where it's like, well, you know, you get Ben Kingsley, you use Ben Kingsley, you know, having him just be so good that Trevor, the reminder that Trevor, yeah, he's kind of a joke in many ways and he's a comedic character, but he's got the stuff, you know, he is
Mhm.
actually a good actor. Which, and I'm not sure that we really had a chance. Well, aside from Iron Man 3, where he's portraying the Mandarin, we never really get to
Mhm.
see him like be good, you know, and because it's, you know, there's the other side of him that's a hot mess. Uh,
You know, I thought that the the way the audition was designed was like basically grown in a lab to be the hardest way for Simon to have
yes,
to act.
yes, yes,
Because we
yes,
know Simon can well, I mean, we know because we've seen Simon cut a really good interview self-tape. It took
right,
him a while to get there, but he got there, and his agent, and she's hilarious. The actress is a comedian,
yeah.
um, Zoshi Gabrielle Mayo, like, oh my gosh, she also reminds me of someone I know, but I won't say who. But oh my gosh! But anyway,
She's great.
you know, like they're like you can audition well, but like if Simon's challenge as an actor is getting out of the script and putting himself in there, because Simon's always trying to invent all of this backstory
Yes.
and world for his characters,
Yeah.
and he can't just bring himself. And here's the audition where he's like, because the thing is, Simon, I think, did a good performance of Pretty Woman, but that
Yeah.
just wasn't what
Right,
the
right,
director was like.
right,
No, no,
right.
no. That's the opposite of playing of doing coming from yourself is doing a scene from Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and let me just say, let's just dive into the black actor part of it, which they
mm,
don't touch on, you know, which,
mm.
and I love that they don't. I love that, you know, we have eyes, you know, or we get and if we don't, we know that he's Haitian. We get it. We
Yes,
don't need to
yes.
like underline it, right? But you
Hmm.
know, but it's there, and I personally just love as a black person myself, seeing a guy fail because he thinks too much and who's black, like, That's kind
Mm.
of revolutionary. I love it. I love it. That's great. Black History Month representation there. I love that he's too cerebral and that he overthinks. And there's but because yeah, you don't often see that. African Americans don't often get to play that kind of thing.
Mm.
So I love that. And the choice for, I know we're jumping all over the place. The choice to
Yeah, it's
have
fine.
Damar Doorman be also
Mhm.
black, that's when
Yes.
they're like, okay, this is not incidental. This is on, we're saying something here, having this
Mhm.
guy who's also African American, um, become and doing like one of the most sort of menial positions. Powerful, yes, but also, I mean, he's a doorman, and have him rocket to stardom briefly thanks to superpowers, courtesy of the Roxxon Corporation. That was very exciting.
Yes.
That was so exciting
For
for me.
those who are unfamiliar with this from Marvel, Roxxon is basically the MCU's version of Exxon, and whenever there's a company that's, like, polluting and causing pollution, it's Roxxon. And I love that somehow they get away with, like, basically saying Exxon is an evil corporation in, like,
Yes,
so many Marvel comics.
yes,
Peter Allen David, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and AMCU has always been afraid of, they don't want to get into that too much. I have always wished they would go to town with Roxxon, because I
Mhm.
would rather have a Roxxon Avengers movie than what we're gonna get. But
Yeah.
I would also rather have Simon Williams just show up again and fight the whole team for Trevor than what we're gonna get as well. I'll just I'll say
Yeah,
that.
no, totally. I have so many thoughts, and we'll talk about that
Right.
part later.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yes.
like with the audition, um, it is really I also I loved the scene with him and Trevor in the original audition. I mean, the thing is that Trevor is giving him good advice.
Yes.
And to listeners out there, if box breathing works, but if you, like me, find counting to be inherently stressful, there are other breathing modalities that don't require counting that work really well. So if box breathing doesn't work for you, don't give up on breath work. There's other ways. Um, but there's so much that Trevor offers him about how to be in your body.
Right.
And the fact that Simon is so uncomfortable with being in his body
Yes.
is like he has these superpowers.
Yeah.
Like, it's also very queer,
Yes.
suppressive,
Yes.
and even gender stuff, and, like, that he has to build a whole psychology around everything. Um, one of my big questions I asked to you is, when I was a kid growing up, I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a film director. Like, that was
Mhm.
my goal in life. I was like 3rd grade. I'm like, I want to direct movies. Specifically, I want to direct Help by the Beatles movie. But but I thought of actors as being charismatic people, like Trevor,
Yeah.
and like yeah himself in real life, but like people who have a lot of charisma just oozing out of their pores. And while that characterization is true of some people, others tend to be awkward.
Yes.
Um, and so people, there's all like different kinds of intelligences that people talk about. And like, some actors, maybe they have a deep understanding of themselves, or
Mhm.
maybe they're an actor who has a deep understanding of others' motivations.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, do you think that a guy like Simon Williams that we see from the beginning of the series,
Mhm.
does he seem like an actor that you've known? Could that kind of guy be an actor who's good?
He could be. He could be. I think what's interesting about Simon is he seems more like he's someone who's suited for the stage, and for that kind of
Mm,
thing. But he is going for it in movies. But that's real too. You see those people all the time. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, it's a very truthful character, and the brilliant part, as you've been alluding to or have been saying, is when there's something about you that you're afraid to reveal in that job, well, then that means you've got to come at it from another direction. It made me think about the way I've heard people talk about Tom Cruise over the
yeah.
decades, that when you are not gonna be able, because of because of, in his case, his religion, which will prevent him from doing certain things, that, the sort of more Stanislavski based techniques are that they trade in, then you've gotta sort of come at it from this other very methodical place. And Cruise, it's more of like this accumulation of all these little things, and he does his research. And I mean, not exactly like what Simon does, but not they're not too distinct either. Like they are just people that really have a system and they work it. And it's very, truthful. And of course, yes, Trevor ends up being like exactly the person that he needs to really sort of fulfill his potential and to get out of his head. And then of course it made me think of the famous story about Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier on the set
Yes.
of Marathon Man,
Hmm.
which I only just saw last year for the first time ever.
Oh, so
On the big
good. Tell
screen.
folks the story. They
Y
might not know it.
Yeah, I don't know what scene it is. I think that it's probably the torture scene, basically, because that's
Yeah.
the few times they're together on screen, and Hoffman is doing all these things, talking about all these things he'd done, and, like, he runs around the block before a take, this and that, and, all this stuff, and, Olivier just sort of sitting there dryly says, "Why don't you just try acting, dear boy?" And that's I'm sure you can see like 10 different versions of that. And I'm not saying I told it particularly well, but just the
Yeah.
gulf between this sort of American, especially sort of new Hollywood, this it's generational, the new Hollywood guys that were all, descendants of Strasberg or Stella Adler or what have you, and their approach versus sort of the classical British approach, which is just a little more text based and just finds a different way that than having to make it real and authentic. So there's
Hmm.
echoes of that, and of course Hoffman tying back to Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight
So
Cowboy.
right,
Yes.
right, right. So, yeah, no, that stuff really worked well. And, shout out to which episode was the callback episode. I guess
Hmm.
that's Tiffany Johnson was directed that. I mean, she must have had a ball. I mean, directing these actors acting, and maybe not acting quite right. I mean, it just must have
Yeah.
been so much fun and a big challenge too to get right to find the just the right kind of wrong for that you need
For each take.
yeah for
Yeah.
each thing and for yeah and the moment in that episode 6, him saying, I can't show the real me. Yeah, it gives you chills, and it definitely, yeah, that you can't help but think about all the closeted actors that
Hmm.
have had to, been in that same dilemma, um, or passing, in a way, it's like,
Yep.
for racial passing too. Like,
Yeah.
like this is, you could say it's a metaphor that, the fact that he's got some superpowers. And let me also say, I love the fact that this guy, you know, almost god level superpowers, and he doesn't want to use them. He
Yep.
he wants to act. He wants to
Yeah.
he wants that, and anybody else would just start using them and get their fame and success in there and get all that adulation that way. And it's so clear that Simon, it's not about that at all. It's not about. In fact, he just looks when once the ship comes in and once everything is happening, he looks pretty uncomfortable. He looks a little lost with all this new opportunity that's in front of him. So
I mean,
yeah,
I have to, yeah,
go
I
ahead.
have to wonder if the only two times, and look, Simon's had a whole life that we didn't see, but not really. We've seen his whole life that matters here
Right.
in a way. I wonder if the only two times that he has chosen to use his powers were saving Trevor in the back street fight and then rescuing him at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like he's had to like own that piece of him that he thought made him different, dangerous, right? Because he almost burned his mom's kitchen down.
Right.
He felt like he was endangering people by just being himself.
Hmm.
And I think just that there's a lot happening in that. But so there you have it, listeners. You can be an actor and be socially awkward and try to cerebral your way into acting. It does happen.
Yes.
Um,
Especially if you look like, yeah, Abdul Mateen. That does the second. That doesn't hurt. If you're tall and handsome, that doesn't hurt. But yeah.
I love seeing his pre-performance warm-up
Yes.
exercises.
Yeah.
Those feel very real.
They are. Yeah.
And he's just in so much blue, like his apartment's blue, he's in blue, this very like cold, isolated
Mm,
color feeling that he's
right.
in this whole time.
Hmm.
And everything with his relationship with his ex-girlfriend
Yeah.
is like the speech that she gives to him at the bar when he goes to see her after she speaks to the reporter because he's scared that she's
Yes.
gonna have said something bad about him because he doesn't know that she knows that he's got superpowers. That bit of dialogue, I I have I have seen people on the internet confirm my read that it sounds like the girlfriend of someone who's gay explaining to their partner that, "Yes, I always knew you were gay," or trans, or something of that
Yes.
nature, and I wish that you had felt like you could be open to me,
And I hope you
but,
find someone you can be open with.
mm,
Yeah, it's very touching.
good job from the actress. It's a kind of the kind of role that would normally be thankless,
Yeah.
and, we didn't know we'd be seeing her again, so it was interesting having that kinda comeback for that scene.
And that's Olivia Thirlby, who
Mhm.
was really, like, heralded, like, in the I guess in the 2000s. She was doing a lot of, like, ingenue parts and had a lot of momentum, and then, didn't quite see her, and, look, I'm my viewing is not everything, so, I'm sure she's done a lot of stuff that I've missed, but I haven't seen her in quite some time. I actually had to, like,
Mm.
verify that that was her, and, yeah, she's really an excellent actress and really, her 2 scenes, because that's basically, leaving him and
Yep.
then coming that sit down. Yeah, that's such a beautiful scene at the bar of, loving someone even though you know that it can't be what you would like it to be. No, very, very moving, very effective, and yeah, really driving home that sort of the subtext of that that this is a very real scene for lots of people, just not about superpowers.
So one of the first windows that we have into the world of Wonder Man is the bit of dialogue that we catch from the original Wonder Man movie,
Yeah.
and it seems like his character is giving a speech to a female character who I'm assuming is the love interest from the covers of the, lunchboxes, and so the world of the fictional world of Wonder Man, the movie within the movie, is a world that consists of Wonder Man himself, his quote, "only friend Barnaby," who goes and betrays him, General what's his face, some evil general,
Uh-huh.
and then unknown, unnamed woman.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of that's just, everything about the Wonder Man movie story parallels Simon's life. And it is such a beautiful foreshadowing
Yeah.
and metaphor weaving that they do through that.
Yeah.
And it may be part of how Simon was able to come to terms with Trevor's betrayal and forgive him was his process of playing Wonder Man,
Right.
being betrayed by Barnaby in the
Yeah.
movie.
That's I watched it. So I watched it and then we talked and decided we're gonna do this. So I watched it again, in just a couple of days, and that in, what is it? Episode found footage in the 5th episode when they're stuck
Mhm.
in the car and they've
Mhm.
gotten the new sides and they've learned that Barnaby betrays Wonder Man, and the way that Abdul Mateen says, "But that's his only friend." It's like
Yes.
it's like, oh, when you know it's coming, I mean, even if you
Yeah.
don't, because at this point, already what Trevor is about, what the real deal is. It's a great line and a great reading of it. And yeah, I think I mean, there is a lot of time passing in the end.
Mhm.
When you rewatch that, they make the movie comes out. But yeah, I like that we don't really get to see the moment, that he decides what he's going to do what he does. But it's very effective that it sort of just creeps up on you.
The second I saw that he was going to mirror a guy with a miserable job, I knew exactly, but that's because I think about this sort of shit.
Right.
I'm like, "Oh, that man's a prison security guard." Like, it all
Right,
just like,
right.
"He's gonna rescue Trevor." I love it. It made me so happy because, like, you know, Trevor didn't sell him out to get rich.
Right,
Trevor sold him out to not go to jail,
right,
which is still wrong, but it is more understandable than selling somebody out. And then ultimately he didn't actually, right? He
right.
actually took full responsibility.
Yeah.
So it made me happy to see them come together again.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like sacrifice, a friend sacrificing for each other, for the other.
Hmm.
It's very moving, and especially this kind of sacrifice. I mean, these guys are
Yes.
both of them are effectively throwing away everything that they want, for the
Hmm.
other. And yeah, it's a touching love story in that way. And yeah, very, very, very moving. So, and
The
yeah,
prison break,
yeah,
just like seeing him come, like shake off the door off its hinges, like while talking with Trevor. Because Trevor, I feel like Trevor at first maybe is just thinking that he broke in so they could talk rather
right,
than like he was
right,
breaking
right,
in to like break him out. And the flying out together, it's just the Superman and Lois moment. You're like, what
yes,
the fuck?
yeah,
Because we didn't know he could fly. I mean, we do know that he probably didn't have super speed because he didn't use it when he needed to chase that guy on the scooter down. But
right,
um, making that possible at the end, and yeah, that's the end of life as they know it for them. We can see, and this piece I didn't quite really feel until the rewatch that the Department of Damage Control is like, oh, we can weaponize Simon.
right, right.
And so they're going to say to Simon, I think there's going to be like, we'll let Barnaby go free if you agree to work for us and be our, enforcer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, there's this beautiful shot even where the damage control bastards are saying, he could either be a great danger or he could be a great asset. And Simon's face turns in the shadow, from the shadow to the light when they say it.
Right.
It's fucking thoughtful stuff.
Very much so.
Every,
I
yeah.
often complain about damage control um, being brought in as effectively a replacement Shield because I'm old. I'm like, come on, what about Shield? Shield, they picked themselves back up after that whole infiltrated by Hydra thing. But now I gotta say, I think it really pays off that it's not Shield, that it's this other
Mhm.
thing that you know it can be this. It can be this, and yes, to see damage control just become this sort of corporate, immoral corporate
Mhm.
entity. It's pretty cool stuff. Like it's and to and the fact that this is something that isn't controversial, even this kind of depiction of this level of law enforcement as
Yeah.
being what this is, and this just about making sure that federal money keeps flowing in the directions that they wanted. It's the kind of thing we take for granted, but as someone
Mhm.
who's been around, like that's pretty bold, and kudos to the writers for that, um, for whatever they didn't name the facility, but I guess it could be the Cube. I was just looking over
Mhm.
all the super prisons in Marvel
Yeah, yeah.
because they've done the Raft, they did
Mhm.
that, or it could be
Raft's
the
out in New York
right,
with me,
right,
yeah.
and the vault, or it could be the vault, whatever. But yeah, the fact that this is where this now there's just now a little kind of like echoes of Civil War. Well, when we got this thing, we need to fill it now, and
Yep.
let's put this elderly actor in there because he's close enough to a supervillain, even though he doesn't have powers.
Yeah, I mean, having it be damage control works so much better than shield because damage control has this, there's no mystique. It's just
Right,
this grubby,
right,
shitty agency that literally says a body is a body.
right.
They're going to put someone in prison to fill space because they don't want their budget to get cut. It's just completely transparent that this
Yes.
is not about public safety. This is about filling. I mean, this is just ice. This is all just like ice
Right,
right
right,
here.
right, right, right.
All people are fungible. And interesting also because I was looking, Ben Kingsley is biracial. He's
Yeah,
British and he's Indian and he's Indian British. And I, not really knowing the character from before, I was like, wait, is Trevor Slattery a person of color? And it's unclear. I think he's probably not. I think he's actually playing a white guy. But like the fact that the actor is a person of color brings an added level
yeah,
to that
yeah,
choice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, as your local over 50 comic book reader, Damage Control actually started off was created by Dwayne McDuffie, whose
Yes.
birthday and Yarzeit just passed in
Yeah.
February. And I have the first issue somewhere. It was sort of it was like a comedy title
Hmm.
because Damage Control was an engineering firm that came and fixed everything after superheroes fought in an issue. And at first, of course, I balked at the idea of like taking that and turning it into a sort of a law enforcement agency. But yeah, now I stand corrected. I think that it
Mhm.
definitely has paid off. That even the name damage control, it just kind of it's like, okay, you think it's saying this, but it's actually saying something else to us about what your real intentions are. And so yeah, that's very beautifully played.
And like when we have in the wonderfully Shaggy Dog Peach Rings episode, the neighbor who calls the cops who end up, stopping the gangsters,
Mhm.
like the neighbor is also like angry that her neighbors have an illegal chamoy production factory in their house. Like she's being a fucking Karen.
Right.
Um, and the whole system is assuming that these young people of color are clearly bagging drugs instead of having a small business that they're running out of their home making ethnically specific delicious candy.
Yes. And I love that you saw the two antagonists in that episode together at the end, watching something, one of the final episodes. Like whatever their problem was, it's all been worked out.
Yeah. No, there was they're like, "It's the Mandarin." Like, it's just
Right.
also like the Mandarin kind of existing as this almost like figure of camp
Right.
in the past for these
Yes.
for kids who maybe saw him when they were growing up. It's interesting.
It is very interesting. Using that and yeah, the flashbacks were very well thought out about that start each episode, including a sixth episode, yeah, when you see Trevor figuring that character out. So yeah.
Mm.
I was mentioning to you just like there's the ghost of Shane Black kind of haunting this show. I think like it's got some of that, the buddy aspect and the sort of buddy caper thing, and the fact that it's LA. It's not Christmas, so that it's not that. But yeah, it definitely, I like that it kind of reminds you of Shane Black without being Shane Black. And I don't know if that's just a byproduct of what they were doing, or if this was something in any way that there was a conversation that was had. But yeah, it kind of there was echoes of it, of course. And I think the first episode ending with a wide shot of the Grauman's Chinese, which was where the
Mhm.
explosion happens in Iron Man 3. um yeah, I think, yeah,
Oh,
that was
thank
another one
you.
where I was like, okay, this is not an accident that it's there, and they are sort of acknowledging the sort of the debt of Shane Black and creating Trevor Slattery, and the whole film kind of has some of that quality that he has.
Well, speaking of flashbacks, I want to talk about Midnight Cowboy,
Yeah,
a film that is full of flashbacks, which oddly was the thing I did not remember from having seen it like 20 plus years ago.
yeah.
Uh, Midnight Cowboy was a landmark movie in Hollywood. It was the first essentially rated X, but like really NC-17, but it wasn't called that at the time, movie with a studio release. And it was part of a wave of films that were, new Hollywood, telling stories about, generally speaking, men, but not exclusively, having like fucked up lives and struggling with how do you exist in the world. It feels like it was in some ways like the child of Cool Hand Luke. Uh, and obviously, and so this was the movie that Dustin Hoffman made after The Graduate and kind of made John Voight a thing. And that's the film that our heroes are seeing in in the repertoire theater when they meet in the first place. I don't know how Trevor could have predicted that Simon would go to any particular screening
Yeah.
of, but the thing that makes that movie work to me as a parallel is it is about two characters who they have conflict and then they realize that they actually need each other because they are alone in the world.
Hmm.
And they ultimately sacrifice what each of them want. Like the fantasy that Joe Buck has is a fantasy of being in New York and being like a high paid sex worker for rich ladies. And that requires him being in New York. And the fantasy that Enrique, I will not call him the name that he does not want to be called because they think that's fine that that's what happens in the movie. But I, as a human being, don't want to call him a name that the
Uh-huh.
character considers a slur.
Yes.
Anyway, the fact that what he wants is he wants to escape to Florida. That's his vision of what a better life would be. And Joe Buck gives it up when he thinks he really needs to do that for Rico to survive. And Rico, spoilers for movies that were made in 1969. But when Rico meets a tragic end, and John Voight's character has to kind of determine if there's a different way for him to be a man and survive in society. But like both of these characters, both Rico and Joe, have had really traumatic lives that they
Mhm.
are both covering for. So anyway, I just think that their dedication to each other and the sort of terrible past they each have and what they were willing to sacrifice for each other, to me, feels like a real parallel between the movies, not just these are both movies about two guys.
Right.
Thoughts?
Two guys that are existing on sort of the outside of something that they want
Mm-hmm.
to get into. Not that Simon or Trevor are in any way as marginal as it's
Yeah.
Joe and Rico, but and yes, thank you for saying that and not calling him by the name he's known for. So yeah, yeah. And of course, it's impossible not to look at that and at first kind of roll your eyes at like Marvel name checking something that they know people think of as the antithesis of what Marvel does, of course. But and John Schlesinger just had his centennial birthday, just
Hmm.
apropos of just FYI. So rest in peace, shout out to him. But I agree. I think that becomes it pays off, and yeah, I think it does. It is more than just sort of an empty name drop or what have you. And this is it's a obviously a different story, but it does definitely, I think, connect with what this one is trying to do and what it's trying to explore, including the sexuality sort of subtext, or sort of parallel, like that sort of connects to the sort of the way that the whole thing is sort of a metaphor for being queer and closeted. Yeah, so I can totally see that. And honestly, I think, New York as a character in that film and its decay, and then
Mm.
Hollywood right now feels also in a different way, but like that it too is crumbling, and that these guys are
Mm.
just trying to sort of get their place in this sort of crumbling empire and secure it. Um and unlike Joe and Rico, I mean, it kind of works, but they get it and they realize that it's not for them. That it isn't. It's not fulfilling
It's
them in the way that their friendship is.
Yes, it's not the most important thing in his life anymore.
Right.
Yeah, like that's which is mind blowing because his whole life was built towards he didn't have friends and he was going to be an actor. I mean, it's a massive
Right.
sacrifice, and now they're going to have life on the run. But when the theme song from Midnight Cowboy is the Nilsson song, Everybody's Talking, which is used repeatedly in the film, and is the song that plays over the escape at the end of Wonder Man, and I just began singing along. Like there was nothing that could have possibly stopped me from going full into singing with it. It was just, I don't know, it was astonishing. I think it was one of my favorite moments in a Marvel film
Yeah, no,
or
it's a
thing.
great needle drop. It's it's got a poignance to it, when you realize what he's about to do and the ramifications of it. Clearly, obviously, this is the opposite of the ending that
Yes.
poor Joe and Rico have to deal with. But yeah, but still, though, it's very, very satisfying. Um, I
Hmm.
kind of I part of me hopes that we never see more of this. Like, just this could be it. Like, I don't really
Mm.
necessarily want to. I mean, yes, of course, you want to see Yaya again and Ben Kingsley again, but also looking at what the Marvel movies have become, the Russification of the Marvel movies. I almost kind of hope that they be free, keep flying, keep fly away from all this other crap that they're
Yeah.
doing and so forth. And just, I almost don't want it to tie back in. even though I made the joke that, yeah, I wish that this was the new, the new Avengers film was just, Avengers versus Wonder Man, but, that would be more fun, but I also, yeah, don't trust the hands that would probably be doing it, so.
And the lyrics of the song are
Mhm.
about, like, the seeking this freedom and, everybody's talking at me, I don't hear a word they're saying. It's like, I mean, it could not be more on point.
Right.
Uh, we have a listener question from Slam Campbell, asking, Trevor Slattery has become a weird fan favorite in the vein of Phil Coulson. Is there a place for him in the current comics to be adapted, assuming we could get beyond the legality, blah, blah, blah? And where would you like to see him crop up or in what kind of role? Any thoughts there?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we doesn't have to be related to the exact things in 616 right now, but just sort of,
Right, right. I mean, yeah, I again, I really think that that's something that I liked in the comics, that these kind of characters that pop in, maybe someone's got to go undercover and they need to act, and they bring in Trevor for some
Mm,
coaching. For some superheroes used to
yeah.
just blowing a wall open, like they can't do that, and they have to coach, go through some coaching. I also want to say, and I said this to you on a in earlier. It's like Kathy Friedman, Lauren Weedman's character in she's the titular character of the seventh episode. Yeah, she's another one. I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see her again. We need more of these characters in the MCU who are bold, who have big personalities, who are very kind of forceful, don't have superpowers. We need them to stand next to the people who can, fly into space and all that. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think the MCU's, its course is pretty well set at this point, but that's something that I would love to see. And that is, yeah, definitely. I think Trevor and Colson's sort of the same thing. You need
Mhm.
people who are just like us. That's really important. So yeah, yeah, I don't read the comics these days much. I feel like I don't know that I'm ever gonna have another Marvel comic book reading period. Maybe I will, but yeah, I don't. So I'm not up on it, but yeah, I think Trevor definitely belongs in those
I like that suggestion for him. I like that a lot. And
things.
also for Kathy Friedman as it's so interesting because Simon is so convinced she's out to get him that it never occurs to either of them that she could be out to get Trevor.
Yeah.
And in some ways, she's the continuity police. Um, I had assumed that Trevor had gotten out because of the blip, like he just kind of got pulled somewhere else rather than I was like ready, so it's like no, he's missing from prison. Like, okay. Um, I I also want to go back and talk a little. Oh, we were talking about before I forget the Joe Pantoliano. Let's talk about that and real estate.
Mhm.
So one of the sort of surprise moments we have early in the series is, oh, we just showed up at the house of famous actor Joe Pantoliano's house, for real, but probably not for real. It's probably a set, but
Mhm.
maybe I don't know. Um, and you had some thoughts about that and how that works in the show.
Yeah, I think that Pantoliano, Joey Pants, apparently to everyone who knows him. Yeah, it's really, again, another one of those. It's great to see him as himself. It's always funny when people are referring to actors by their full name in to their face. And yeah, the idea of class coming into Wonder Man, and that, yeah, acting is a weird job because most of the people who do it are broke. And then the people who are most famous for doing it are not. Very much
Mhm.
not. It makes them a very interesting union.
Yes.
Because a lot of the people depend on their benefits. And most of the people who are at that upper 1%, they understand that intimately, and most of them, I think, feel some responsibility to make sure that
Mhm.
their fellow actors are looked out and taken care of. So yeah, it's a very interesting job where, unlike say teaching what I do, where we're all pretty much in the same boat for the most part. Um, so yeah, I just, Pantoliano is very funny. Simon, all of his comments are like, it's funny because yeah, he's not awkward. He's actually like when he meets someone like Pontoliano, he like knows exactly what to say, about Midnight Run and
Mhm.
when I eat a steak, I think of you from the Matrix, all the kind of things that like, yeah, that's what you hope you would say if you met Joe Pontoliano. And
Yeah, it's
not
true.
and not fumble and just be nervous. Yeah, he's just it's only when he has to really act and pull something out of himself that's when he's I don't want to say sixes and sevens because now the kids have ruined 6 and 7,
Uh,
but yeah, that's when so that was all great, and the interplay between Pantoliano and Ben Kingsley was a lot of fun. It hit me watching that. That's like Kingsley is playing someone who would like to be Ben Kingsley is what I wrote down
yeah,
watching that, and like Pantoliano saying, if it wasn't for those shenanigans, you probably would have been, or Pantoliano
yeah,
says, if I was British, I'd be knighted by
I
now.
would
And
have
then they
done
cut
it
to
exactly.
Sir Ben Kingsley, since Trevor is absolutely not knighted. Though yeah, and I don't think he's going to be, but in that series, but yeah, so that and a great, very smart. And I laughed out loud at the when Pantoliano returns in the final
Yes, it was.
episode, having snatched up the
Mhm.
Barnaby part. Yeah.
Oh my god. I love when Simon steps in to defend Trevor's honor
Yes.
because Joe doesn't know that I don't think Joe is trying to be mean. I don't
No.
think he's trying to. He just doesn't understand
Yeah.
what it is like for other people in that point. And I also thought it was interesting that Joe points out his initial startup money came from getting an acting job, but his real money, the reason why he lives in that house is because of real estate.
Right.
So it is about being a landlord. It is about having initial money and like building capital from there.
Right.
And that and also kind of funny to have him be like, remember real estate, sort of like the plastics
Right. Right.
kind of
Right.
joke
Right.
from The
Yes.
Graduate.
Yes.
Um,
And very true because everyone in Hollywood is being just like nickel and dimed by all the money has to go to the CEO and to take care of this debt from these mergers that shouldn't be happening. So yeah, people are not the idea. You wouldn't have had to put that like 20, 30 years ago. You could have just had Joe Pontoliano living in that house without any mention of real estate. It would have just been like, yeah, I get 20 mil per movie, but those days are over now. And so yeah, it's very astute to have him be pushing real estate that this is a job and it's not enough to live in the kind of comfort you want, which of course is not something that that either Simon nor Trevor are terribly receptive to. Uh,
Now, is acting a job or a calling? Is it the most consequential thing anyone can do with their life?
I just love because I think with Trevor being this sort of like guy who's done questionable things and, has a sort of checkered past, but I love that he is still 100% sincere about that,
Yeah.
Um, I've been studying, I often bring up in my college courses, classicism, romanticism, modernism, postmodernism. And then recently I discovered meta modernism, which is like sort of the new thing that is now some theorists are saying it's replaced postmodernism, that we're now a
Hmm.
meta modernist period. And meta modernism, one of the things that separates it, like the idea of postmodernism is that, well, it's fun, but it's kind of empty, right? You're just kind of mixing and matching all the things you liked. So let's put robots in an old west show. Let's take all these things and have fun with them. And meta modernism, the idea that like that's not enough, we need more. And so they call meta modernism like ironic sincerity,
Mm,
something like I'm not a huge fan of everything everywhere all at once, but something like that, where it's seemingly very postmodern, but there's also like there's a true emotional core there. It's not
yeah.
just all a shrug, it's not cynical. And it made me think of, and Trevor, yeah, I love that about him, that through it all, and despite everything he's doing that is very morally bankrupt, even, he still deeply has a profound, almost religious belief in acting.
Yeah, I mean, and I he makes the case when they're having an interview with, when he and Simon are having their aside during the callback audition, um, that acting is a tool that helps people connect with others and connect with themselves, and that is something that is valuable in the
Yes.
world, and especially for, like, helping someone like Simon find a way to connect with other people himself, someone who's been so alone and so isolated. But then it also is something he uses in espionage. You can see him doing the empty your lungs trick before he goes to talk with the damage control guys in one scene.
Mm,
And it's like right after he's explained it to Simon, like that
yeah.
the next time you see him with damage control, he does the same tactic himself, which I thought was wonderful.
Yes.
Another observation actually about the callback episode is the sound cues in that episode are all Hollywood sound cues. The only episode that I think really played it that way, but like it's got orchestral music that hits in and just they were really playing with the genre in that particular scene, I think, in a way that kind of gives it its own feel. And speaking of scenes and episodes, they're kind of its own thing. We
Yeah.
should talk about Damar, the
Yes.
doorman Davis, our one episode that really I think it's very important in giving you an understanding of what Simon is so afraid of and why Hollywood is acting the way Hollywood is acting. Um, because Hollywood's solution to the danger of superpowers on set is wildly unfair, but they are also not crazy to think that they should have something going on.
Right.
And so it sort of gives you, well, yeah, what are your thoughts about that episode?
Yeah. I think I think so, with the MCU shows on Disney Plus, there are some that clearly were not meant to be, like, were probably originally thought to be feature films, and they kind of just decide to do them that way. I know it's not MCU, but I know, like, the Obi-Wan show that was a miniseries that was on, that was meant to be a theatrical, and it was sort of just switched over. So I know that that kind of thing goes on, but I think what Wonder Man works very well because it's a TV show, and it feels like a TV show. And yeah, having an episode that's totally a bottle episode, basically, shot in black and white,
Mhm,
and to
mhm.
explain all of that, that's the kind of thing that that you get with a TV that you can't get with a feature, that it just wouldn't be, it would be a different thing, or it would just be a scene or what have you. Uh, yeah. So again, I think that the Doorman episode, also directed by James Ponsoldt. Yeah, it's very important to, you know to help us understand why, what it is that he's afraid of. And it's just also just a kind of like classic Hollywood story, almost like
Mm.
the kind of thing that F. Scott Fitzgerald would write, for a quick buck and sell to Esquire. Just the rise and fall of somebody, and how quickly it all goes. It can go. I think, and yeah, it's also interesting that doorman, that he is someone whose job it is to keep people out, and he's this sort of low level figure who's also important. The fact that he's black, and suddenly he's now, the job now, the powers reflecting the job. Also, I just think the idea of, that he can become essentially this a portal for other people, is
Mhm.
really interesting. And
Yes.
that, people literally going and moving inside of him, uh, unlike, something very much connected to acting, in that superpower. So it's very smart
Yeah.
to do that. And I don't think that, I think this is wholly an original creation. I mean, someone
Yeah.
can correct me. And again, I'm not as up on the contemporary
No, there
stuff. Yeah.
there's characters with that power, but there is no doorman.
Right.
I mean, and I love that his power is literally about openness.
Yeah.
His power is literally letting people inside of him,
Yes.
and he suffers for it.
Right.
And Simon can't let anyone in. So he's this perfect parallel for Simon. Simon wants nothing more than to be an actor. Doorman, he was satisfied with his job. He liked his job. He went from satisfied to unsatisfied.
Right.
So he is like this, he is like the reverse Simon.
Right.
You know?
And he's someone who maybe is taking like Joey Pants's advice, but it doesn't help, you know, like he's trying to diversify and get involved in all these you know, company, you know, make himself a brand. And yeah, it's just like, but it still feels, and I love the black and white because it gives it this sort of like classic, timeless Hollywood feel. Like he's not he's not trying to be an influencer exactly. He's just, you know, I mean, sort of, he's a figure, but it feels almost like the kind of thing that, you know, like Where's the Beef in the 80s, where it would just be like this catchphrase. And it's very smart of them not to try to make it to 2020s and make him like into this social media phenom. I mean, yes, he does see that people are trashing him on social media, but that's it. He doesn't, it's like he's really just trying to be an old time movie star. And there is something so terrifying about what happens with Gad, you know, and the idea of someone being lost in you. And yeah, I love that. That's it. You know, we don't see him after. We don't know anything about what happens to him. You know, that would be a fun thing to have show up in one of the films, is, you know, have him show up and or find out that Gad was eventually freed from him. But yeah, and we are denied. And what's interesting about Doorman is we get the classic sort of Marvel origin story, right? With toxic waste from Roxxon is what gives him his power. And we don't get that with Simon. We don't have a clue as to why Simon is, I mean, is he a mutant? I mean, that's all we can kind of think. Is he an inhuman? I mean, I love that they don't even bother. They don't, to give us, there's no accident that we can point to. Oh, well, that's why he can do what he does. You know, it's just like, no, we're just going to, you figure it out. Like, but this is, the reality is, this is who he is. This is what he is.
I really enjoyed the music choices. The one thing I want to think about, though, just in the Ron Kovac, in the callback episode, and he's giving people his perception of the opening of the movie, where they're flying in and he's playing the Creedence Clearwater Revival version of Midnight Special, which is a very strange song to soundtrack the opening scene that he's describing with, but it parallels the world of the movie, because what is the Midnight Special about? Well, so it is legitimately a traditional folk song, but the version of it that first broke it out into the popular consciousness beyond a regional Southern audience was Leadbelly, who actually never wanted to be called that name. That was the name that was assigned to him by his like literally evil manager, John Lomax. If you would like to learn more about the sad truth about that, listen to the Cream Crossroads episode of A History of Rock Music and 500 Songs. But anyway, Hattie Ledbetter's version of the song Midnight Special, and it is literally about somebody in prison praying for the light of this particular train to shine on him, because it is the belief of the people in prison that if the light of the Midnight Special train shines on you, you will be freed. So that has a lot more to do with Trevor than it has to do with Wonder Man.
A foreshadow.
Right, right. Like, and the light as well with the sort of the way they kind of animate and illustrate Simon's, the way the light, like you see the light radiating out of the, in his irises. And I was just like, this is so interesting. But I was trying to think if there is any significance to the song choice within the world of the Wonder Man movie rather than this TV show. And I can't really think of one, despite knowing this song very well from playing it with my dad on guitar growing up, etc. But everything is so thought out like that. It was such a strange moment until I kind of recontextualized the song choice for me. Because I'm also sort of like, wait, why does Ron Kovac know the CCR version of this song? It's so random.
Yeah. So, and then another interesting touch is we are in 3 movie theaters in this in this miniseries, and none of them are AMC or chains. None of them are sort
Hmm.
of like main. They're all one of them is a former chain, and the other two are just neighborhood movie theaters. And so the first one, the Eagle, is currently. I used to live in Eagle Rock in the '90s, and it was like a second run theater. It was a church, but recently, Vidiot's, which is a sort of legacy video store that sort of pioneered sort of like auteur, very curated collections, and now they went away and now they're back. Two women started it in the '80s, and now it's back, and they took over that theater, and they do great revival screenings. They just had Elle Fanning there with Ava Victor. So yeah, it's a cool place. I've been there to see a number of things. So it's active again. It's not that place, but it's just an interesting choice. And I'm sure, these theaters are a lot easier to shoot in, much more control. They're not running the way that a Cinemark or AMC is running. The
Hmm.
second one where Midnight Cowboy's playing. I don't know the interior of the theater because, to my knowledge, the interior of that theater right now is pretty wrecked. Although there is a single long take where they walk from inside the theater to the street that looks like where it is, but I can't be certain. Anyway, that theater is in Highland Park, and it was just purchased by Kristen Stewart because it's been closed
Oh,
now for about a year and a half, and that was she's going to reopen it as a combination like neighborhood theater, so folks in the neighborhood with kids can come, and also for revivals and another sort of place to see great films. So thank you, Kristen Stewart. And then finally, at the end, that's the Village Theater in Westwood, which a long, long time in the golden age was a 20th Century Fox theater. And then it's right next to UCLA, and it has been bought by this group of filmmakers led by Jason Reitman. I think Christopher Nolan's part of it. Spielberg has a piece of it. It hasn't reopened yet, but that place was closed. This It's a great theater. Batman '89, Goodfellas. So many films I saw. RoboCop, opening weekend. So yeah, that it's closed currently, and it's across the street from the Bruin where Tarantino filmed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Margot Robbie watching herself on
yeah.
screen. So yeah, just very interesting to pick these theaters, all of which have had to deal with the kind of collapse of the neighborhood theater and of film going. I mean, I'm not trying to say
Hmm.
that was on purpose. I just think it's an interesting commentary that all of them in some ways are in some stage of rebirth or being reimagined, even if they
Yeah.
aren't yet. So yeah, those are just little touches that I found it, yeah, interesting to be three very recognizable theaters if in the story.
I love that. Thank you. I definitely would not have put those pieces together. But it also speaks to like people want to go to an independent theater. They want a place that has a they want to go to see a movie in a place that has a sense of place and
A
interest,
soul,
visual
yeah.
and a soul. Yeah, all of those things.
Yeah.
That's what we want in that film going experience. And
Mhm.
sometimes we want to go see movies in repertoire theaters and talk to loud random dudes who happen to be talking to a person they're pretending to be their agent on the phone.
Yeah, I think I saw Midnight Cowboy just like that, like at a
Mm,
10 I was in college, and I think the first time, yeah, it was like a 10 AM. AMC, of all things, they used to do, like, morning screenings. It would just be, like, college students and retirees, and, that's how I saw a lot of classic that's the first time I saw it I'm talking the early '90s, so yeah, that's not far off from my first experience watching the film.
one scene I want to call to is the exchange that Trevor and Simon have when Trevor comes clean to him. I I mean, Trevor could have kept lying at that point.
Yeah.
I think that Simon did not know that much and he could have come up with some excuse, but he made a decision. And the acting performance that we got from both of them, and that was
Yeah.
really amazing.
Because you're dealing with such great actors, there's levels to it, and yeah, the fact that Trevor is not, has clear feelings about having made this betrayal. um Simon's hurt rather than anger, although the anger comes, and of course, it's quite volatile when it does show up. And that's another thing I think interesting too about, like, uh as a black male,
Mhm.
being who's how are you allowed to show your anger in public, and the ramifications of becoming very angry in public. So that was all very, very interesting to me. And that it's something that he has to deal with and has to really be careful about. Yeah, that was pretty resonant. This
That was so deliberate. I
Yeah.
was like, this pays off. The choice to have Simon be black specifically
Mhm.
entirely pays off in that dynamic,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, and feeling that you've gotta keep it together and you can't, because then, next thing you know, you've slapped Chris Rock on the Oscars, and you've just put a stain on your career, a 30-year career. So,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, and that works. And again, without a single word about that, like, I love that they trust that we can sort of do that work for ourselves, and if it, or come to it in our own in our own way, in our own time. So yeah, and
Yeah.
also, yeah, the Pacoima episode, just really, very important. And it's great that we get to see him with his extended family. And I love the bit where they're just trashing him to his face, because I guess they forgot he speaks, Haitian
He speaks
Creole.
Creole.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my
that's which
God.
says a lot about a lot of things, that they forgot that he says it, that he probably doesn't speak it that much. And Eric, I want to just, for the old time Marvel heads, Eric is a comic book character.
What?
He Eric, the brother, Simon Williams' brother,
Oh,
becomes the Grim Reaper, and yeah, he avenges
yes.
avenges Simon Williams and becomes a
Okay.
villain
Sorry.
in his own right. Yes.
I thought you meant like specifically like the guy who works in insurance. But you're right. There's
Yes.
like an entire plot line in the Avengers, like messy stuff, aliases, all
Yeah,
the Grim
yeah.
Reapers. I mean, it's like a whole fucking thing. I hadn't. And Simon is convinced that his brother, Simon's brother, is shitty to him.
Yes.
Simon's brother is not super villain level shitty to him.
Right, right.
So it's an interesting kind of like, so one thing, I mean, Simon, assuming that his brother tried to fucking stab him in the interview, which I am not surprised that Simon's brother did not portray him in the interview, because if Simon's brother's bullshit is that he resents his brother for following his dream, then him undermining his brother's dream would just be truly like the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
But I do think that's I hadn't made the connection between the Grim Reaper brother and this other version of Eric. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it just works so well, I think, having, uh as a someone in a black family and a black immigrant family on top of it, be a
Mhm.
creative. And right, the contrast with Eric doing what every immigrant, parent generally would want, their kid to do, get a great job where you're in charge of people, a team, and you've got an office and a nameplate, versus being an actor and not talking yourself out of jobs. I mean, not to paint people with too broad a brush, but right, we know that this is not something that almost any, um, person that comes to America wants to envision for their kid. So yeah, no, all of that was just very well realized. And of course, I was checking to see if there were, um, if there were white writers or black writers, and black writers of Haitian descent. But as I said, yes, it wasn't. Though there was not, that doesn't seem to have been a writer of Haitian descent on the staff, but
Ah,
there was a story editor
actually,
or consultant.
they
Yes.
had a cultural consultant who is a TV writer himself on like I'm forgetting, but like on shows people care about, like that small time,
Yes.
and plays a small role in the show as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, so You know, well, that's well done. That's how it should be, and it
Hmm.
feels specific, and it doesn't feel generic. And I don't know how they came about that either. I was talking about that with my wife. Like, yeah, I just love the idea that they decided it wasn't just going to be like, let's be more specific than just African American. Let's. Yeah, I'm sure I'll see someday someone talk about that, but that was really
And
great.
mhm.
Great choice.
And what a time to be telling specifically Black immigrant stories, like all the temporary protected status, that stuff that Haitian Americans have been who are not citizens, like the folks who aren't citizens have been dealing with, is now getting revoked by Trump.
Right.
And so it is a very dangerous and challenging time to be an immigrant from Haiti in
Mhm.
America right now.
Mhm.
Um, I'm actually going to throw in a few links to some good organizations to support, actually, in the post that I will post with this episode.
Excellent.
Is there anything we haven't hit that we need to?
Well, it's not like a major thing, but I also could not help but think about Jonathan Majors watching this.
Oh,
Having a
yeah.
guy with the most unbelievable rise and just astonishing fall, that and be involved in Marvel. And yeah, and of course Kang often was interacting with Wonder Man, no
Mm,
less. But yeah, again, fascinating, just little detail that to think of that, and how this show is sort of, again, without in no way explicitly, but still dialoguing with the realities of how much making a misstep and how catastrophic it can be. And again, not I'm in no way being sympathetic with Jonathan Majors, please. I mean, to be clear, but just yeah, that it can,
good to point that out for
yes,
folks. Yes.
and not in the least, but it definitely was something that I thought about here.
Mm, that's wild.
Yeah.
Do you think that Simon understands why he keeps getting fired or cut?
That's a good question. No, I think I think that he is so married to this type of process that he has, that no, I don't get the sense that his reaction to being fired from the American Horror Story show, no, he doesn't seem to at all, absorb that he blew it. It seemed to me, I felt like it was just, he just feels like they're not giving him the chance to be him, and he doesn't seem to really get that he goes too far, that that he needs to figure out how to read the room and play pick up on the cues, because he's too busy thinking about himself and too busy thinking about his own, and too busy in his own head. And no,
Hmm.
I don't get the sense that getting fired like that has, I don't think the penny drops for him. I don't think it drops until, the things that happen with, I think when Von Kovac, the big audition at Von Kovac's house, that's really the beginning of the sort of the dawn of realization. And then of course the irony is that it works out anyway, because even though he does give into some poor instincts, it doesn't matter. He gets the part. But yeah, and nothing we see of the filming of Wonder Man, it doesn't seem like he's, I mean, there's a little bit of that with some of that, and Trevor does defend him and come in. So no, I don't think he ever really totally gets it, and or has like a mea culpa. Like, I think he's just like, I'm a great actor, and this is my process. He learns a little bit from Trevor about being present in his
Hmm.
body, but he seems like he's still that guy, kind of, who really sweats the details of the script and so forth.
But it speaks to Trevor's mentorship that Simon is still able to act well in the movie, even without Trevor,
Yes.
which, he had depended on so much. And he was, struggling to imagine auditioning without him even. And one thing that um, I mean, imagine he'd have to deliver that amazing speech to a tennis ball, right?
Right.
It's just not an easy way
Yeah, yeah,
to do
yeah.
that.
That was great.
But I thinking about the scene in the trailer where Simon is giving the script change request to the director. And in a second, it looks like Von Kovacs is going to be like, is actually being sent back to the drawing board about a major theme, which would be a whole fucking nightmare to have to revisit. But Simon is like, no, 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 it's really just this one sentence. How about I just make this one change? And he's, yeah, okay, fine. So it's like Simon is dialed back. So it
Yes.
makes you kind of think that rather than bringing that up every 10 minutes, Simon maybe only made that request a couple of times and made it at a reasonable scale rather than move your entire lighting setup, even though we're almost done with the day level of disruption.
Right. Right.
So he learned a thing, I think, I
Oh
hope.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I don't want to say that he didn't learn anything, but yeah, it's not a radical shift. He's not totally different from
Yeah.
what he was, but
Um,
this is also the second thing that has gone out, the second project that has come out under the banner of Marvel Spotlight.
mhm,
Like mm, that's a thing they're doing. Echo was another one, the first one that did
mhm,
that. So, it's an interesting, I guess I'm just looking at it as like the idea that it's character ground driven and grounded stories that do not require extensive MCU knowledge to enjoy. And they're often smaller scale and grittier. Um, so yeah, I mean, Echo, I think is a little dubious because I mean, you do have to know Daredevil and or Kingpin and have seen
mhm.
Hawkeye to sort of to be introduced to that character. But yeah, I think that this one, yeah, like truly and it works because yes, it is so sort of self-contained and yeah, a more grounded and I hope that more people get to do interesting small scale stuff. I think that's what's been missing a lot from the
Yes.
MCU. And I don't necessarily need to see as much as I love the characters, I don't really need to see and the actors, I don't need to see this Simon Williams again. I think some things, are just good for an outing and just let them be. And
They're gonna
you know,
disappear to Florida and with
yes,
the Nilsson soundtrack.
yes, exactly. But
Yeah, I do want to keep hoping and thinking that they can still be free. I
yes,
mean,
of course, and that's why I kind of
it's
want to
just,
see him again, even though he's
yeah,
way too powerful for them to just let him be happy and be free and
I know.
doing community
Yeah.
theater somewhere under a fake name. I mean,
Oh
we
man.
could do a little bit of implausibility about him sneaking into the facility after being a superhero on a major tentpole, but that's boring. Who cares? But I mean, that that I did kind of I did sort of chuckle a little bit at that. I felt bad for Chuck at the end, but then rewatching it, I did see that basically he gave all his money to Chuck. So for the for using for since he's basically knows Chuck's not going to have a job at
Yeah.
this facility anymore. So
Yeah. No, that was very noble of him to take care of someone
yeah,
who had who he was betraying, right?
right,
Who had trusted him.
right.
Um, but like fuck the prison system.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see like how it takes a toll on everyone involved.
Yeah.
And it shows you that.
Yep.
Um, I think that's it. Uh, do you have any, if you liked this, watch that type recommendations for our listeners?
And thinking about it, if you like this show, I don't know that I can really recommend anything else the MCU's done on Disney
Oh, no,
Plus.
not MCU,
But
just, in general. Yeah.
yeah, no, nothing comes to mind right away. Um, but yeah, I think it's got a great mix of like it's fun, it has a certain darkness to it at times, but yeah, it's also I think a lot of things right now I'm seeing that we're tired of anti-heroes, we're tired of, things being too dark and we need some light in our characters. And so, yeah, I'm glad to see that I think in some ways the new Game of Thrones show, which I've only seen the
Mm-hmm.
first episode, but it feels like very much in keeping with that. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
friendship a lot lately, and how
Yes.
important the importance of friendship. I mean, almost treating friendships, as particularly male friendships, like we used to do, like romantic heterosexual relationships, but in a good way. I think it's important, and these male friendships are not like they used to be. This isn't Lethal Weapon. So yeah, I think this
Hmm.
is a good trend.
Yeah, I actually watched those back to back as well. I it's listeners of the podcast, I'm sure, know that Stephen Atwell, one of my best friends and co-host of Venture Brothers podcast with me and regular guest on Graphic Policy, was one of the world's leading experts on A Song of Ice and Fire and that whole book series, like literally. And so when he died 2 years ago, I haven't really engaged in anything in the fandom since then, and it's hard. But I made the call, and I did watch Duncan Egg, and I love it. So um, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, thank you guys for listening to Graphic Policy Radio. Thank you for being patient with our cadence and pace. I'm pretty sure we'll be covering the return of Daredevil when that happens. I'm also going to be doing an episode finally on the People's Joker and a few new comics that are coming out as well. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend and please rate and review us on whatever podcast app you listen to. It really matters. Um, to keep up with me online, I am on Blue Sky a little bit too much, and my handle is Levin. That's my last name, Levin. And where can folks keep up with your work online?
You can find me on Blue Sky under Genius Bastard. It's an old joke. It goes back to a few platforms at this point. You can, yeah, so I'm there on Blue Sky. I write for RogerEbert.com on occasion. I just wrote something for a tribute to Jesse Jackson that I had to do very
Oh,
quickly, and I think I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. So I have a lot of reviews and essays there. Also Hammer to Nail. If you I do reviews there from time to time as well. The last one I did was Charles Burnett's My Brother's Wedding. So yeah, I'm writing
ooh.
there. So you can find me those places.
Oh, fantastic. I'll throw in some of those links. That's wonderful. And as we like to say, folks, keep it geeky.